I have a question for you. Is this, the ADU?
Just sign it.
Yeah, just your name.
On number 4, are we missing a comma, a
Here's
period?
what I see. Oh, this is the ADU.
Yeah.
Well, this is accessory basement. That's accessory. So it reads,
Personally, no.
accessory
My new
shall
build,
be allowed
right,
as a principal use, building may be used. If something's missing.
Right.
I want a period.
Okay.
Because,
We put a period where you want it.
and then it says,
Was it the sign in? Oh, okay.
Perforated floor. It's meander.
could be a comma. I think what it should be probably best for, maybe it shall be allowed as a principal use,
Same thing.
comma, and may only be used for dwelling purposes as an accessory.
I'll remember that, maybe you write that down. And, that's just a clerical.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think.
yeah. Do you have the word
there's no fighting it out.
document?
I mean,
No.
He sent it to me. I look forward to
Oh, you forwarded it, corrected, and then you
more right now.
do that. Okay.
Yeah, he gave me a word doc.
No, everybody.
I was gonna have
Let it live on a hill.
Oh,
just, you know, let's keep it consistent.
right.
I can do it around this.
Okay,
Almost do that?
very good. I'll take it back, and I thank you for taking care of that.
Thank you for telling me.
Thanks, Travis, for chairing the last meeting.
Oh, no place I'd rather be.
Not any further than when I called you.
How was your trip?
You guys, I told Alex, this mic is so hot, so every whisper, everything gets picked up.
Okay.
Every penny, like every cough, every paper.
That's clicking right now, Patty, just so you know.
All right, welcome everyone. It's 6 o'clock and we've got a bigger agenda, so I'd like to get started. Let's begin the meeting by starting with the Pledge of Allegiance. There's a flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, welcome everyone. I'm aware you could be doing anything else right now, but you chose to do this, so thank you for coming. Thank you for your interest. Yeah, and for any new faces here, I'm Patty Howes, I'm the chair. Dave Rasmussen, Tyler Strange, Travis Chellis, Richard Frisky, Cindy's our recording secretary, Ruben Schell from Beckett and Rader Planning Consultant, and Catherine Kaufman's here tonight. She's our township attorney. So, yeah. All right, the first thing that we have on the agenda is the approval of minutes. Cindy sent out the minutes within the last week. Did anyone have any further edits for Cindy?
I did not know.
And if not, I would take a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Support by Travis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Announcements and correspondence. Cindy, did you get any announcements?
I did not. Just this letter.
Okay, I had one correspondence from David Daniels that I passed along to the Planning Commission via email, and he expressed concerns regarding large-scale gravel mining. So we'll note that that'll be part of our public record, and that's the only one that I had. I have 3 brief announcements. As most of you know, our township website received a significant upgrade, and I just wanted to let you know that you can reach the Planning Commission by email, planningcommission@bankstownshipmi.gov. If you, so bankstownshipmi.gov is a new website, and it is a nice improvement. If you don't like to use the internet, you can call Julie, our clerk, and she will give you my phone number, so you can reach us that way. Second brief announcement, thank you to the board. We received an increase in our monthly stipend, so thank you. And that was unexpected and welcome, and it demonstrates that you value our time, and I'm grateful for that, so thank you. Last announcement I have is that the township and the village are working together on a 5-year Parks and Recreation plan, and they would like your input. And so if you go to the bankstownshipmi.gov webpage, there is a survey. And if you scroll down, it'll tell you a little more about that in a clickable link. And the link is 5-year joint recreation plan survey, and the link is operational. Okay, public comment, 3 minutes. What's on your mind? Annie.
I just want to thank you guys. It was a really productive meeting last time. I left feeling very good about it. I still would like to show my support for, I'd like duplexes to be in all zones, and I would like the RV ordinance to be looked at, to get rid of it entirely. And, that's it. It's a beautiful day outside.
Okay.
I've lost my, that's it.
Thanks, Annie.
Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have a question, just for clarification. The RV ordinance, are you hoping that there will be restrictions on RVs or no restrictions on RVs?
Sorry. To get rid of the ordinance completely that's written to allow for us to have RVs with no rules or ordinances attached to it.
So you would like restrictions on RVs?
Okay.
Thank you. This isn't for
Oh, it's not a-
dialogue.
okay,
Sorry.
I
No.
was just,
Yeah, she would be happy. I'm sure Annie would.
I would, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely catch me after.
Any other public comment? Okay, we'll move forward then with our standing reports. Dave, I know you guys met.
Yeah, we had I think we may have met twice since our last board meeting. I wasn't at the original one. But it was, at that one, it was determined to look at the proposal by Mr. Slavsky. And then it moved to the second meeting, which we reviewed again. And what he was proposing was splitting or trying to get 2 dwellings on 2 separate lots, even though they're plotted lots in a subdivision. The house has been built and added onto more than 20 years ago. Sets on the line, over the line. The well and septic are on both pieces of property. It's been taxed as one piece of property for probably since its inception. So it was determined that it would continue to be one piece of property and didn't meet the criteria for us to allow anything to go further. He was advised by Catherine that he could seek a challenge, and it sounds like he might do that.
Yeah, that was an interpretation. His request was an interpretation, appeal of the zoning administrator's decision. The zoning administrator made the decision that it was one parcel. He could not he had 2 platted subdivision lots, like lot 27 and 28, but they've been one parcel for at least since 2006, even before. And so he wanted to put up a second dwelling unit on that, even though the existing house crossed over lots 27 and 28. And the zoning administrator made the determination that, no, you cannot do that. This is one parcel. We have a definition of zoning lot in the ordinance, and that's what it was. So the zoning board of appeals upheld his decision, which you don't see very often. You mostly see variances at the zoning board of appeals, but this was an appeal of an administrative decision. And the applicant was Mr. Slavsky. He may appeal us to circuit court. We think he might, so that could be ongoing.
And then we met once more last week just to approve minutes. So
Okay.
we've been busy.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. Curtis, anything from zoning administrator?
Still fairly quiet. I mean, when I say quiet, I mean, there's pretty much daily phone calls. People have questions about different things. My interpretation of what can I do with this lot? I want to do this. My realtors call and, can we do this? Can they do that? So nothing unusual. I may have submitted one zoning permit to Julie, but that might have been last month for all I can remember right now. It's been pretty quiet as far as actually issuing permits. And other than the ZBA situation, but I got nothing else to report.
Okay.
Well. I did just so you know, Fox Mission has come up before you before? If you remember that?
multiple times with the runoff and
The what?
with the runoff and everything
And the
that they
road.
created.
The road? I had a zoning question from somebody that owns property in Fox Mission that's looking to sell it. And she was just wondering about some things, and in our discussion, we got talking about that whole deal. And about the road and about the creek and all that stuff. I said, well, I reminded her, I said, that's not my purview. I said, but I had commented on how Eagle should look into that. I took the step to call Eagle after that phone call.
Okay.
And I talked to Carrie Kent, is her name. That's her name up at Gaylord. About that road situation, about the filling in, et cetera, et cetera. And just so you guys know this situation, that work was done without a permit. The president of their association contacted Eagle after the fact. And Eagle agreed to do I don't know how you call it, but an after the fact permit. I don't know what the
That's
term
what it's
is.
called, after the fact.
Yeah, and so they said, okay, here's this, we need your specs and we need everything else. Well, that was never forthcoming. So for a whole year, so they never responded to Eagle. So now I talked to her and I said, as a zoning administrator, I get questions on this all the time. And it's really not, I don't have any hammer for this that I know of. It's your deal and is someone gonna check on it? She said, well, she checked her records. She said, oh, we see, then that's when she told me where it stood. And she said, well, we have a compliance, it got dropped on their end. She said, but now we have a compliance officer and I'm informing that person even as we speak. So they're gonna have a compliance person looking at that situation. So, if this is just one of those situations that, people on Old Dixie, they get frustrated because stuff's done and they think it's our deal. Well, it's not in this case, but we took the next step to contact the appropriate people to address it. So, hands off at this point, it's all Eagle. But, just so you know, we collectively, I use a collective we did address that to a further extent than before, so
Thanks, Chris.
that's all I got.
All right. Richard, Township Board.
Okay, yes, our last meeting was on the 23rd of March. And my first item was the rec plan that you already referenced. The only thing I'll add to that is that there has been a committee formed to develop that 5-year rec plan. We also worked on budgets for all the different funds. We continue to work on the 2026 road projects. That's still in process. Nothing's been nailed down yet as far as, except that we are committed to spending all of the road money that's coming in from the millage. We just haven't figured out where's the best place to do it yet. We're waiting for a little more information. And also there's an important meeting coming up sometime in May. The road commission is hosting a meeting and both state representatives that cover our county are gonna be there, Roth and Borton. And I'm sure that the board members are all gonna be there, or at least I know I will be. So there's some new things about how road funding is gonna be handled, I think, from the state level that is probably important for us to learn, maybe even before we decide which way to go on with the road money for this year. On another matter, we accepted Brian Darrow's RFP for mowing at the cemeteries and all the township buildings. We are seeking RFPs for the town hall maintenance and cleaning. And then, as you know, because it's on our agenda, the setback ordinance amendment was sent back to us here at this planning commission. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Ruben, do you wanna, how do you wanna do this? We will consult with you a lot. Do you wanna say anything up front before we get started?
Yep, I think just real brief, all the planning items are kind of covered in later agenda items. So master plan, we'll talk about first, complete 63 review. process and, you can take a look at the comments and, updates that have come in since then. And then there's a number of different zoning ordinance kind of text amendments, that are at different stages in the process. There, of course, the setbacks amendment, two-family dwelling units, accessory dwelling units, and the ordinance as well. So, yeah, glad to answer any questions and move through the agenda on those items too.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, first up on under unfinished business is the master plan. I wanted to give a little development summary first. So I want to start by saying the planning commission has been 100% compliant with following the Opens Meeting Act. No decisions or deliberations have taken place outside of this venue. So in spring 2024, the Beckett and Rader, along with input from the planning commission, developed a survey. We used the tool we had at our disposal, which was to mail this out to all the residents, soliciting input. We did get input, as it's widely reported, from 49 people. We collected that information through the summer, and then in the fall, we began reviewing section by section and editing them, editing that document. We had a 63-day review period. In that time, we had 9 people respond. Of the 9, it was supervisor, clerk, myself, and the county administrator, and 5 residents of the township. Public notice was given for that, ample notice was given for that, proper notice, I'll say, public notice was given for the review period. We held a public hearing on February 10th, 2026. And as a result, we have a document that's highly specific, detailed, very nuanced, great snapshot of Banks Township, of our history, of our land, and of our core values. We know that it is not as strong as we would like it to be regarding demographics. That snapshot of demographics, of course, we'd like it to be a little more thorough. However, I'd like to say the 49 people that did respond are the people that always come. They're involved, and some of those people even have a bigger picture understanding than some of us planning commissioners. So I don't appreciate it that amount of people gets minimized. I don't think that's helpful or constructive. So what we have is a document that gives us that 10-year outlook that is can be very valuable for us regarding decision making. And what am I missing? Ruben, anything?
Yep, I think that's really the basis of it. Ag covered it well. It's a document required under state statute to inform land use and zoning decisions for the next 5 years. So yeah, the planning commission started developing it back in 2024 and reviewed sort of chunks of it in your monthly meetings here. Has a pretty thorough examination of regional trends, all the things that influence land use, like demographics, natural resources, transportation, and that kind of thing, and distills all that down into a series of goals for that just kind of provide guidelines on how land use should sort of continue and develop into the future. So that's intended as a guide for land use decisions and zoning decisions over time. Some of the kind of key themes of the plan are, it's a pretty strongly preservation-oriented type of plan. Kind of suggests that a lot of rural kind of character of the township should continue into the future, but with some kind of updates to zoning and land use to provide for some more housing opportunities. So as far as process goes, this has been through the 63-day review period required under the Michigan Planning Enabling Act. That got started, and the board authorized that back in November of 2025. The process, that 63-day review window included in February, and then, as Patty mentioned, you had the public hearing on, February 10th, 2026. So, to date, we've, had comments come in from a number of different community members, on the plan. I've taken and incorporated what I can into the document. Basically, things that are sort of minor deviations from what was approved for that public review period. Kind of wording changes, factual sort of updates based on what exists in the township, and then just some kind of minor policy deviations. And that is where the process stands now. So that's back to planning commission tonight for you to think about what updates, if any, you want to make to the document now based on the comments that's been received, or if you feel it's appropriate for adoption as well.
Thank you. I did go through all the edits and every single one of them were incorporated to that, there was a summary of edits and all of them were included and so it's a complete document and at this point I would be prepared to make a motion to adopt the master plan.
I'll support.
Okay. Any further discussion? Well, I want to make my motion first, and then we'll discuss. I move that the Banks Township Planning Commission adopt the 2026 Banks Township Master Plan as revised following the 63-day public review period and public hearing held in accordance with the Michigan Planning Enabling Act on February 10th, 2026, including all text, charts, tables, maps, and future land use map, and direct the township clerk to publish notice of adoption in accordance with the Michigan Planning Enabling Act. David supports. Further discussion? Okay, at
I
this,
have some thoughts.
okay.
I was hoping we could streamline and simplify it some more. I wondered what any of the rest of you thought of the edits that were suggested, that we got from Marv Rubing on several of the chapters.
I read it in earnest. I don't disagree with any of the core values. It's very generic, but I guess primarily it's late. The public review period ended February 10th and mine came in my inbox March 9th. So if we don't observe the rules we set, then that we give permission to everybody else to disregard the rules. And it shows lack of regard for those people who did follow the rules. That opens us up to accusations of favoritism, and I would like to avoid that. I think some of the things that are in there can be useful in the next go around. Remember, we get to do this in another 5 years. So that's where I stand on that.
Okay, I'm a little bit concerned whether the board is gonna be thrilled with, we've been asked to, I think, maybe do more than this, but, I'm not.
Even though you guys pushed and approved it to go to the 63-day review period and preliminary?
I think so, and I don't know, maybe it will pass the board, I'm not sure. But I think, there have been a lot more comments made at the public hearing and so forth that I think have influenced some.
The public comments that were made were incorporated.
Okay.
And I gotta stop and ask, does the board interject here? Do we
So
adopt a master plan? Does the board
So the township board has the right to reserve the final approval of a master plan to the board. If they adopt a resolution saying so before the planning commission approves the master plan. So under the Planning Enabling Act, it is default to the planning commission unless the township board adopts a resolution saying we have final authority and approval of the master plan. All right, so I don't know if that's been done yet.
No,
Okay, so I mean, obviously, if the planning commission votes tonight to go forward, and it has to be by a majority of the number of 5 of you, so you're all here, so it'd have to be at least 3 of 5, 5 to vote to approve that master plan. Then it would be approved. If the board at any point before now had adopted a resolution reserving that to themselves, you would then just make a recommendation for it after the 63-day wait period, all the public comment, you finalized it, you got it all done, you would forward it to the board and they would get to approve it. Sometimes that leads to the back and forth, kind of like we might have already seen a little, I don't know if we have, where the board will want one thing where the planning commission will recommend another, and sometimes a plan will get stuck in that back and forth. But for now, if the board has not already adopted a resolution holding that final approval to itself, you could go forward tonight if you wanted to.
Okay.
Catherine, would it be odd for them to adopt it at the next meeting in order to take control of it?
Would it be, well, first of all, you have a motion on the floor in a second, okay, so either you can vote that motion or something, the person who made the motion can withdraw it, I don't really, either way is fine. The board could call a special meeting and say we wanna reserve that, and it should be by resolution, so everybody's by resolution. They would have to adopt a resolution saying we reserve final authority to approve the master plan to themselves. And then at that point, all you would be doing is forwarding a recommendation that we recommend that you adopt this plan as presented. Here's our recommended version, right? Okay?
All right, so I made the motion, David seconded, and I'm gonna do a roll call vote, and Richard,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
and David,
Yes.
and I'm a yes too, so motion carried. Do I need to read a resolution then? Do I need to read a resolution?
It should have been by resolution. Do you have the resolution?
I do.
Okay, let's take that motion by resolution, please.
Okay, this is a whereas. Everybody knows the whereases.
Patty, do you have a copy of this that I can get later?
I sure do, Cindy.
Okay, then I won't have to turn my recording on.
Okay. All right. Whereas the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, 2008, PA 33, MCL 125.308 requires municipal planning commissions to prepare a master plan pertinent to future development of the municipality. And whereas the Banks Township Planning Commission has prepared a draft master plan for Banks Township to update and replace its previous master plan dated 2019. And whereas the draft master plan was made available for the various entities and general public as required by the MPEA, including adjacent municipalities and Antrim County for the 63-day review and comment period. And whereas a public hearing on the proposed master plan was held by the Planning Commission on February 10th, 2026, pursuant to the notice required by the MPEA. And whereas the Planning Commission received and considered written public comments submitted during the 63-day review period and at the public hearing, and has incorporated minor editorial, factual, and clarifying revisions into the draft master plan in response to those comments, as documented in the Planning Commission's public comment summary memorandum dated March 10th, 2026. And got one more whereas. Whereas the Planning Commission finds the proposed master plan as revised is desirable and proper and furthers the land use and development goals and strategies of the township. Now, therefore be it resolved that the Banks Township Planning Commission hereby adopts the 2026 Banks Township Master Plan as revised following the public review period, public hearing, including all text, charts, tables, maps, descriptive and other matters therein intended by the Planning Commission to form the complete master plan, including future land use. I'll make that motion. Do I have a second? Support by David, and so I'll do a roll call vote again. Richard,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Tyler, and Dave, and I'm a yes, so motion carried.
So now, just by statute, when you get that ready, Ruben will help you do that. You have to have a statement, included on the inside of the front or back of the master plan if you actually produce a hard copy. That is their resolution, and when that's all done, you have to give it to the township board for information only, okay?
Okay,
All right.
thank you. All right, moving on, status of our setback amendment. As you know, if you attended the board or watched the board meeting, they voted this down unanimously. The motion, the original motion was by Marv Rubin to ask the planning commission to review setbacks for the possibility of reducing or eliminating them, support by Richard, and this motion carried 4-1. And as a result, we did increase, or excuse me, we moved setbacks in 2 districts, agriculture and conservation recreation. So now everything's, the front setback is the only thing we adjusted, 20 feet. We still have 50 feet for a front setback in manufacturing, which is 1% of the district, and R1 residential, which is 16% of the district. So at this point, I did go to the planning commission, county planning commission meeting. Brian Graham thought that it was generous of our township having some knowledge of the other townships and their setbacks. And they had no problem. What they say is does not conflict with the county master plan. That's how they say they approve. And at this point, I guess I would ask Curtis if you are aware of any history or current problems, issues, or concerns regarding rear or side setbacks.
No.
Okay, I wanted to get that on record. So we'll just wait for the board to deliberate on this further because I think we did what they asked and they need to give us direction before we do anything
Well,
different.
we've got a board member here. What was the board's take on that? Why they got voted down?
Well, I think we still see some unnecessarily large setbacks and some inconsistencies, things that seem to be inconsistent. For example, I'm looking at it right here. I think probably we were hoping for at least the front setbacks to be reduced probably in more districts. For example, in low-density residential, it's still 50 feet. And it's still 50 feet in manufacturing. And again, those are front setbacks, so they're always on top of the road right-of-way. So,
If I can interject, is that of certainty or is that an opinion of what the overall board is portraying that they want us to do?
I was trying to.
Yeah, no, and I just,
Not just my opinion.
I'm not
but
trying to be a pain.
Because
I
it
just-
was, no, I don't
Yeah.
not mind the question or the tone of it, there's no problem. I think was the board sentiment, and that's why it was voted. You said, I think it was 4-1, right?
No, it was unanimously voted down.
Okay, the 4-1 was the previous.
Correct, the original.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know there was some thinking that maybe we should go further, and a good compromise might be if there were no setbacks. If there was no zoning, there would be no setbacks. And, we're trying to make this zoning more agreeable, workable to folks. So maybe we should just cut them all in half, all front, side, back, everything. That's not necessarily, I don't know about that, but that was one
compromise.
person thought that might be a compromise.
Catherine?
Can I just, I'm sorry, I don't know why we're talking about no setbacks, but generally, just as a safety idea, cars like, parking space is 9 by 20. You wanna be able to get a car off the road generally in front of a structure. So 20 would be the absolute least I would, for those reasons, that's just my personal opinion, okay? Now, if you've got a lot of non-conforming structures that are closer to the setback, then, you know, so that they can't, fix up their house, they can't put on a new porch, they can't put a deck, we can look at maybe the non-conforming section of your ordinance. So I don't really know what generated, I guess I should say it this way, I don't
That's
know
what generated it, Catherine, sorry to interrupt, but that's what generated it was
Okay,
a front setback challenge.
okay,
And that's what this board was tasked to do.
okay. And so
And
you,
that's what we did.
and you
We
went to,
deliberated at length.
okay,
We even talked about side and rear
okay,
setbacks. Double lot setbacks on split by roads. There was lots of discussion.
okay.
Um,
And you came to 20 on front, and that's the only thing you changed.
That's what we were asked to do.
In the ag and the conservation. right?
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I thought residential was supposed to get kicked back to that 20 foot too.
That wasn't part of our amendment, no.
I thought it was across the board.
I thought it was across the board, except for manufacturing.
Guys, read your amendment.
All of the proposals that we had to the change of the amendment never included residential. I can't recall what was originally brought to us in terms of a classification, whether it included residential or not. But everything that we had conversations on from day one were only inclusive of agricultural and CR.
The official document that went to review before the county planning commission did not include residential. I don't know how beneficial it'll be for us to continue to deliberate. We'll just have to wait till the board. My kind of sense, I watched the meeting, my sense is they had a really long meeting, and I just think they kind of ran out of steam.
It was within the last 30 minutes of the meeting itself.
Yeah, and it didn't get proper deliberation because of the length of the meeting, and they're intending to do something about that, but hopefully they'll take it up in earnest. I know Katie had made the mention that we'll all go home and look at our maps now, and hopefully they did that. So we need direction from them, and maybe they'll vote on it and maybe it'll pass because we passed it. The county planning commission said it's good. It's not inconsistent with the master plan. So let's let them do their thing. All right. Next, anything further you want to say about that? Anybody?
No.
Two-family dwelling zoning amendment in agriculture and CR. Did go to the county planning commission for this one. They have no problem with intent. It's not inconsistent with the county master plan. They're appreciative that we are trying to increase low-density residential in a couple of districts. And the problem came when we were trying to dance around the chain of lakes in Lake Michigan. And turns out it is not okay to do that. We can't carve out exceptions. It's called a violation of the uniformity of use requirement. All land within a specific district has to be subject to the same regulations, restrictions, and permitted uses, so that similarly situated properties are treated equally. So if we want to keep CR as part of this amendment, we would have to create an overlay district. Couple options, I know of two options. I'm open to listening to anything else. So we could strike CR from the two-family dwelling and just keep it in ag. In so doing, that allows 58% of the township the possibility of having low-density housing, R1 16% and ag's 42. If you feel strongly that you'd like to keep it in CR, then that requires more work. That requires an overlay. And yeah, so your thoughts, guys? What do you want to do with this?
Yeah, can the zoning administrator interject? I know it's not my time, but Catherine's aware that the legislature passed a bill
No, it's still in committee.
that has not gone yet,
No, I looked last night. It's in committee.
but it's recommended.
Yeah.
Well, I voted no, and my take is that if you allow it, you're gonna allow it. You either allow it everywhere or you don't allow it.
But
Well, that's not appropriate. We don't do that for all. We don't.
Well, I'm saying, but why? For instance, I don't want a duplex next to my house, but I know we need housing. but my neighbor can put a duplex next to my house, but if I live the lake, nobody's gonna put a duplex next to my house.
Your neighbor has duplexes to your house.
I'm not going down that road again. But my point is, in this law states this is kind of that, if it's allowed use, then have it be an allowed use for housing. Why
In
are
what
we carving
district?
the lake out?
NCR.
Right.
Wasn't our intent to, guard our, water preservation, water quality is a priority according to our master plan, so that was avoiding putting them on.
But Dave also brought up in past meetings that these are very expensive to build, so you're not gonna see them popping up everywhere because they're too expensive to build and they're not cost effective to do that. So again, we've got the people that have lakefront homes say, well, I don't want that next to my house. So I feel like we're giving that more. Okay, you've got the money to live on a lake, so you don't have to have a duplex next to your house. Well, I can't afford to live on a lake, so I gotta have a duplex next to my house. Why are we cutting out sections to have it one place and not the other? We either allow it, or you can build a house. Like,
Are you suggesting we eliminate it in the other districts that we're already allowed in then too?
it's allowed even already?
Yeah, in our
You were
water.
only adding it to, we were
One
only adding it to the other two, CR and agricultural.
Right, but we're trying to cut out,
We tried to eliminate it just out of Lake Michigan because of multiple reasons with lots and, but took it away from, I believe, that inner lakes.
Right.
And that's what's creating that spot zoning, I guess.
I just see one more issue that we're paying lawyers for, one more issue that the zoning administrator is gonna have to take up. Whether it's, if we think we need duplexes, multifamily housing, then we allow it.
Well, I know we've talked about this before, but multifamily is 5 or
different,
more,
right.
and you can't, if you don't have septic and infrastructure, you can't do that in all districts. So we are specifically talking two-family dwelling. And, it is a stated goal to add housing. It's, and by doing it in ag, we still do that. Curtis.
If they go 10 for 10, if they pass that law, 10 for 10, a 10-acre piece, that you can split it 10 ways down to 1-acre lots, and you have this duplex thing in there. Now, this is just potential, worst case scenario, but you could potentially have 10 duplexes on 10 acres. So just be aware that that's a possibility if you go ahead with the duplex situation.
That amendment to the Land Division Act has been adopted, okay?
That's happening next year, right?
It's already been adopted, but it's a year till it's effective, so
So
10
next year.
splits when you used to get 4, okay, so that's there. Then the other companion legislation, which somebody's probably mentioning, is the housing legislation, which would allow on every single family zone property a 4-plex as a permitted use. It would allow the minimum lot size to be 1,500 square feet, which is 50 by 30. Okay, so when you understand the push that's going on in our legislature for housing opportunities, we're the general counsel for the Michigan Township Association, they're opposed to this legislation, the Michigan Municipal League's opposed, but there's a huge push. So not to disturb whatever you're doing now or whatever kind of analysis you're doing now, but you need to watch those bills. Because if they go, imagine, it's only that small lot size, 1,500 square feet if you have public water and sewer, so that wouldn't apply in your township, but you take a 1 acre is 43,560 square feet, and I can go down to 1,500 square feet. I get 30 parcels on an acre. I mean, think about it. The density is incredible. So, not to derail you from what you're talking about tonight, but you really have to pay attention to those bills in the Michigan legislature right now.
This is new information from when you started talking about duplexes.
So,
And don't think that there aren't gonna be a whole lot of 10-acre pieces get cut up 10 ways. just so you're aware.
What would you like to do with this amendment?
Is there any legislation there now that is getting voted on to allow, just to make sure I'm understanding this, to allow duplexes on any zone?
Yes, any residential zone will be allowed to have duplexes, but even more so, quadplexes.
And
ADUs would be permitted uses outright, so it's a very broad housing bill. Whether or not it's gonna move in the way it's drafted, I can't say. Whether or not there'll be some, I know the Michigan Township Association has gone on record as opposed to this, but willing to talk about something not as drastic. And those conversations haven't been had yet. The sponsors of the bill, it's, Kristen, I think her name is Grant, she's from Grand Rapids. It's bipartisan, it's Democrat and Republican sponsors on each of these bills. And I have to be honest, in the last week or two, I haven't paid attention, but when they first came out, we did a big analysis at our law firm of what this would mean, and it's significant. Now, we don't have public water, sewer, here, as far as I don't know, maybe you in the village here, okay? But if you don't, you're not gonna get to those very tiny, lot sizes, but it would allow duplexes by right, okay? Accessory dwelling is by right, and up to quadplexes on a single family zone piece of property. So-
Even without municipal utilities?
Even without, if it can be, obviously the health department have to approve it. But I'm just looking at your minimum lot size is 20,000 square feet in the ag district, that's half an acre. So if somebody has 4 acres, they could easily get, a duplex on there or more. So.
Is there any point to us doing anything if we do something, the
Well,
legislature comes and?
I really can't say what the legislature is going to do. I can't predict the politics of it. So I think if it's important to you that you provide housing opportunities just by the very minor step of allowing duplexes in some or all residential districts, then you should go ahead. And if the legislature comes behind you and changes something, we'll have to, regroup at that time.
Can I ask a question when you say residential districts? Zone residential,
Well,
RA, or?
they can decide what districts they want to allow, agriculture.
Okay.
A lot of times that's a question, is agricultural residential district?
But I thought you were saying that those bills pertain to areas that were zone residential is the way I took it, maybe.
I would have to look at them again, I don't
Alright.
exactly remember.
Sorry.
That's fine.
that was my question. Is it actual residential zone, or is it inclusive of what you allow residential homes to be put on for your zoning? And maybe I'm misunderstanding that, but that would be my question to that.
Okay, I will look on my phone here while you continue deliberating of that.
So it seems to me that what we're considering here would be a good step in the right direction. If things go ahead in the legislature, it's gonna dramatically increase what we're proposing anyway. So it's not like we're gonna make it worse or more dense by this decision. So I'd like to say that we should allow the duplexes in all zones where, including CR, including this little R1. R1 they already are, right?
Correct.
Okay, so the only ones that they wouldn't be in then are the manufacturing and village
Correct.
manufacturing? Where, can somebody tell me what's an example of that in our township?
Atwood,
Here's a map.
Atwood, and then just outside, correct, of the village over by Drent's Brothers? Where Drent's Brothers used to be, now the pallet mill.
pretty much like
Okay,
co-op John Deere.
so there's actually only just that one little chunk in Atwood.
Mm-hmm.
The rest is village.
Village manufacturing, yeah. opportunity to go in the right direction on something that is clearly coming our direction.
We don't know that. That's not a certainty. With all due respect, that is not a certainty.
Well, that's true.
That is purely speculation.
I guess what I mean is the push for making housing more accessible is real.
Yep.
Pretty much everywhere. So I think it would be, and we obviously have already, we've proposed, but I think I'd like to just make it a little bit further. I certainly wouldn't want to complicate our zoning further by doing an overlay district for CR.
Yeah, I'm not inclined to do that either, especially since it's all gonna maybe be upended anyways. We'll spend a lot of time and money doing, creating something that, so either we allow it in CR or we don't.
You know, another thing, to me, it would seem like most lakefront, the vast majority of lakefront property owners are probably not gonna do duplexes. They own that property because they can afford it and they aren't gonna share their lots with a close neighbor, I wouldn't think. But I don't think we're gonna destroy our lakefront property values.
Okay.
I see it different.
Short-term rental.
Those lakefronts with duplexes command a lot of money on a Airbnb situation.
Bingo.
And, so
Then you're taxing it as
I
a
would,
Airbnb rather than a residential.
I would,
Good tax base, if somebody wants to do that to themselves, they'll
yeah, but
pay.
it's not a tax, they're a non-homestead, they're not paying for the hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of business that they're running through it. Again, it's not someone that's got a cottage that's just trying to rent it out a couple times to pay for his taxes. That's how it used to be. You use the cabin or whatever. Companies are buying properties that they never step foot on.
Yeah.
They're in to make money.
But that's,
Well, let's see if
that-
you're
you could have the
close.
same
We
argument for
got a
ag.
motion, with no support, so.
I get where you're coming from, Travis, on that, but in ag, everything is spread out with the average size of the parcel being substantially larger than anything on lakefront. And I've gotta say, if I were a business owner and I was a developer and I saw that you had the ability to buy land on Lake Michigan and I could I could increase profits substantially by doing this, it would be something that would be on my radar. I think, in my opinion, by doing it in ag, don't we open up over 50% of the entire township
Yeah,
to allow
58.
that?
58.
I don't know the best way to go about it. I also see if we look in the globe in 2 years and we allow this in CR and this starts happening, how many people are gonna sit here and chew us up and down because now they have potential or they actually have duplexes next to them and we can't do anything about it anymore. Like that's a whole nother, we gotta look into the future a little bit and that's could be a huge problem.
From a development standpoint, building a duplex on ag, again, you're only gonna, I think you're gonna see a boom in housing.
Yeah.
Based on affordability of building said housing. And especially when, you start talking quads, there's a substantial amount of fire separation and fire suppression and it just adds a ton to the cost. So I don't, it's not something that we shouldn't worry about, but I don't see big developments like that coming to Banks Township. Because they're gonna go work in Charlevoix or out of town. It is a bedroom community, whether we like it or not.
And I mean, that's the problem with being a bedroom, the school right now is dying because we're a bedroom community, because we don't offer housing.
Richard's got a motion on the table. Let's deal with that.
What was your motion?
I actually didn't know I did.
Oh, I think it's just discussion. I
we'd
think
have
you
to
I
start
thought you
over.
had a motion. You didn't have a motion?
No, I said what I'd like to
Okay.
see, but I hadn't formulated the motion yet.
Well, I'll put a motion on the table that allow it in ag. All right, and take it out of CR. Move forward with, taking care of that large portion of the township, open it up for housing and see what the, legislation does over the next couple of years.
I would support that. So all in favor of David's motion, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No, aye.
You're no. Are you abstaining? I shouldn't have voted. Let's do roll call. I back up.
So where are the zones we're gonna have it in?
Ag and R1.
It's also, I think, in the village zoning district right now, but not the village manufacturing under the current zoning ordinance.
And by village, we mean village of Atwood, not
Right,
Ellsworth.
yes.
Yep. Atwood.
Okay, so I'm gonna do this vote over. Redo. David proposed that we have this two-family dwelling amendment. And David made a motion that we would strike CR from the amendment that we made and allow duplexes in agriculture, in agriculture. And so I'll do a roll call, and I seconded it. And roll call vote, I'll start on that end. Dave is a yes.
Yes.
Yes. Travis?
Yes.
No.
And I'm a yes. So motion carried. Now, Ruben, you'll redo the language on this amendment, and then we have to have another public hearing?
Yes. Before we move forward.
Okay, so, we have to get that, do we have to get the language first and then have the, board?
Well, the motion, the ordinance has to be revised, but you can public, if you want to have the public hearing at your next meeting.
That's what I'm
And
getting
get
at.
that on the agenda, and we can publish notice for that. And then get the language drafted before that meeting. It's gonna be a slight change, it's gonna strike out
Yeah.
CR essentially, right?
Mhm.
So it will not be a significant change, but I do think we should have another public hearing.
Okay, all right, so I'll call for a public hearing, May 12th at our, next regular meeting. No, Catherine, we did talk about a special meeting happening then too. Is that gonna be a problem?
A special meeting, what?
At our next regular meeting, which is May 12th, you and Alex and I had a discussion about a board meeting.
Yeah, if the board wants to meet with you all to discuss direction or whatever, your meeting is already scheduled, right? You could have the public hearing, you could just have the board join you at, 6:30. You could do the public hearing, whatever you wanna do.
Okay,
But yes, you can have a public hearing even if you're having a joint meeting with the
Okay.
board.
very good. All right, this is tough, guys. I appreciate your input on this. Resolution number 3 of 2020. You couldn't hear me talking at you on the screen when you were having your meeting. But, it was my I know that you all directed Ruben to strike propane tanks as a structure. If our overarching township goal is to make our documents, more current, relevant, and updated, I don't think that goes far enough. Because resolution number 3, just for review, does 4 things. The board made this resolution, so it's on them to choose how they proceed with it, but from a land use perspective only, that's our lens. The board says that it's a watershed moment for them regarding zoning enforcement, this is pre-Curtis. That they are determined to do better on zoning enforcement, and then it talks about 3 things regarding land use. Propane tanks, which we now know are governed by NFP, the National Fire Protection Association. generators, which are covered by building code, and structures, meaning something permanent to the ground or permanent to a building. But that's a structure. So that's implied, a structure. It says similar structures, wide open interpretation there, okay? I think it's implied that it's something that's permanently attached to the ground or a building. There is nothing in this resolution that would help us make decisions or determinations or offer any interpretation. So, that's where I would think if they would like to, strike this and make this one less document, there's potential for that. It seemed simple when we started out. The board may want record of, this is how we survived 2020. We did this, this is what we decided to do. For historical purposes, I don't know. I would suggest we eliminate resolution number 3 of 2020, or suggest to the board. I'm looking to Catherine and Ruben and what are your thoughts on that, first of all? And then procedurally, I don't know how to go about that. Is there anything in this that you want to keep? It's already covered. It's redundant. I think structures, similar structures, is wide open for interpretation and redundant because it's covered in our zoning ordinance. And the other two also are governed by other entities, so. And this whole thing got started because we were trying to simplify things, and maybe we're making it more complicated.
I think if it's already regulated by a state mandate, then why should ours
Let it
be?
go.
And that was kind of our conversation in the meeting, is
Yeah.
it's already regulated, why are we getting
Right.
involved?
My only concern was the generators or anything like that. And I don't know, I looked into this for Evelyn Township recently. And they had it within theirs for generators no more closer than the setback that they have for the township. So I don't know, shame on me, I just don't know if that is regulated by the building department or not.
Generators.
Yeah,
Well, we know you can't put structures on lot lines.
you can't put structures on lot lines, and you have some, as long as we're confident that that's not gonna be an issue, as long as we're maintaining our setbacks and
It
things
will
of
be
that
an
nature.
issue. The noise of a generator on a tight lot is an issue. Okay, so if you have a tight lake lot, tight, okay, and somebody puts that generator in the side yard, or their air conditioning unit is more likely to, and it runs, and you're only 10 feet away from your houses, it's an issue. So, that's just my long-term experience dealing with lake lot people. So, I've never quite seen a township board make a resolution regarding enforcement of the zoning ordinance, but they are the legislative body who actually approves the zoning ordinance, so I can see where they would do that. I just think that, the idea, and I've had litigation over this, and it was an air conditioning unit, not a generator. Is that a structure? Does it have to meet the side yard setback? And if so, if the side yard setback's 10 feet or whatever, then it has to be at least 10 feet away from the property line. And if that's all okay, if it meets that, then yes, because it's attached to the ground, right? So generally, that's how I would interpret that, but there's a lot of, we've had people sue each other over making them move the air conditioner or the generator on a side yard on a tight lot. So I think when you think about what's the purpose of a setback for a structure, that would be one thing I would think about is, impact of noise and on adjoining properties. Now, in terms of what the building code interprets, in terms of what they need for setback or separation, that's different from what you would think about, I think. But you're thinking about noise, light, air, separation, those sorts of things. That's it all helpful. I don't know, Curtis, if you had many of those or not.
And I just took it as that's what the board kicked back. They didn't like the propane tank. I don't think they mentioned the other items, so that was an easy compliance with the board, is get rid of the propane tanks as a structure, and
Okay.
if they want something else done on the other things.
Okay.
I think the similar structures definitely needs to be if we're gonna address it and we're not gonna wipe it out completely, I agree with you. That's a headache for him.
Right.
Well, help me out here. What do you, I don't, you lost me somewhere along the way here. What, am I holding people to setbacks or not? Or are you saying the setbacks, but the setbacks don't apply to propane tanks, generators, or similar buildings? What are you telling me?
What we talked about last meeting was just the propane tanks, the
Right.
propane tanks.
Yes, alls I was stating is that I don't think the building department
I'm not
has.
being
any-
snarky.
No, I know, alls I'm saying, I don't think the building department has anything to do whether your generator is 10 feet off the line, on the line. I think that's a zoning.
Yeah, I would think if there's anything with, specifically with generators, it's gonna be some sort of electrical code thing of where it's placed, and that isn't us, that's, you know, they gotta abide by that. Certainly propane tanks, as far as their distance from a house is a fire thing, it's a safety issue. Like I said, I'm just a little confused about,
Our goal.
yeah, what is it? I mean, especially in regards to those things, what is it you expect of me?
Yeah, unless there's some ambiguity that, is a problem for things like generaters and air conditioning units. If it's not clear whether those are other structures or not.
The way I'm applying things at this point, if somebody's building a home, let's say on one of the narrow lake lots that are 100 feet, right? I'm telling, because it's less than 150 square feet or 150 foot parcel, you've got 10-foot setbacks from the eave. To me, I would say if they're putting if they're trying to put a generator between the eave and the setback, I'm gonna say can't do that, because I'm seeing that as a structure. And I'm seeing that with a propane tank too. Because, you know, I think the reason you have a setback is because you want a setback for things. It's like having a DMZ, right?
But what got kicked to the board, to us from the board, was they don't want the propane lit.
You don't want that
listed
to
as
apply.
a structure.
Right.
They didn't say anything about generators.
Yeah.
Or air conditioning, cause I see Catherine's point is, if they, you know, somebody's got enough money to run enough line to the corner of the lot is, and that wasn't given to us. So don't make it our problem until it is our problem.
And it hasn't been.
Propane tanks are a problem. That's what we,
Yeah, okay. So, do you want to redirect Ruben to strike propane tanks from the resolution 3 of 2020? And Ruben, what else do you want to say about this?
Yeah, I think, you know, we can kind of adjust the resolution how we want in something that, I don't wanna put Catherine on the spot, but one question I have is because this was a board resolution back in 2020, whether rescinding it would need to be done at the board.
The board will have to take action. You could recommend to them, we ask you to either rescind it or modify it this way for these reasons, okay? And then hopefully they'll, respect that, because I just think that you need to maintain just in my experience, maintain those setbacks, whatever it is, 10 feet. And then that allows the person to design their home appropriately, right? They know what their parameters are. You know, sometimes they say I have to put the air conditioning unit over on the side yard. It's the only place I can put it, but at least they're gonna maintain that 10-foot or whatever. Now we're talking about setbacks again, right? But whatever your setback is. And I've just seen people go to war and spend a lot of money and argue over the generator or the air conditioner on the side. And it just, if we have the setbacks, then at least we know that we've done our part of it. And if they design it wrong or build it wrong, then that's on them, right? So it's just a thought.
Okay.
So, Catherine, it sounds to me like the board didn't need to get the planning commission involved in this, it was just propane tanks.
Well,
If they created this by resolution and they're the only ones that can change
they
it.
can change it, but maybe they wanted the PC's input or, you know, explanation from Curtis, or why did we do this in the first place and what do you think about it now? I'm not really sure how we got to this point. And I've never really seen a board do a resolution on how to enforce the zoning ordinance. But it's better than him having to, you know, do it the way he thinks it is and then someone on the board saying, no, you're wrong. Okay, so we all wanna be on the same page so that we all understand. It is a board resolution, the board will have
Those
to
are closer than 50.
do something to modify it.
Okay.
So then I think we should make, should we make the motion to recommend to the board
Yes.
To modify,
The resolution.
to modify the resolution to remove propane tanks, for the reasoning of what we've discussed?
as a motion.
I'll support Tyler's motion.
That's support by Travis. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right. Okay, ADU draft, Ruben,
Yes.
you
so
sent us, go ahead.
Included in this month's packet is a draft zoning ordinance amendment. This is just a pure discussion form to, change accessory dwelling units, from special, accessory uses, which require public hearing and, that kind of process at the planning commission level, change it from a special accessory use to a by right accessory use. This is just going off of discussion last time that, taking a look at the ordinance, taking a look at, the special and by right uses that are allowed and the amount of discretion that the planning commission wants to have over those different uses. This was something that you all wanted to have done, is to change it from, special use, to a by right use. So that's really the, gist of the amendment here. It's just all the districts that accessory dwelling units are currently allowed in, as a special use changed. Those are now drafted to be changed to, permitted by right accessory use. And, yep, so that's just in the packet for discussion purposes here. It isn't every single district in the zoning ordinance. And one of the reasons for that is that, ADUs, accessory dwelling units, are by definition in the zoning now required to be accessory to a single family district. And so, the districts that don't allow single family uses as a principal use aren't included in this amendment at all to allow ADUs. So that's the reason for that. And so this encompasses the village district, the mobile home park district, low density residential R1, conservation recreation, and, agricultural districts. Those are all those that this change is kind of drafted in. So, that's here for discussion.
Okay. It seemed like, do you have more thoughts that deviated from what we talked about? This is what we asked Ruben to do. He put this together. It's what the board asked us to do.
I think it's super straightforward.
Okay.
I'd make the motion to change it from special use to permitted use.
Support by Travis. All in favor, say aye.
Correct me if I'm wrong there. Didn't he already do that? And now it's our turn to make a motion to continue this, and Ruben, am I
Oh,
right?
we gotta have a public hearing.
Correct, but
We
we
gotta have a
make a
public
motion
hearing.
for a public hearing.
Yeah,
I'll change my motion for a public hearing,
May 12th.
May 12th, to allow, to change ADU from a special use to a permitted use.
Okay,
I'll support that one too.
okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, so I'll call for a public hearing May 12th, and this will also go to the County Planning Commission. All right, RV ordinance. You guys, I wanted to really try to keep this meeting to 2 hours. We have to talk about sand and gravel yet, and we also have a little opportunity for teaching time. Would you like to table this? Do you want to move forward on this? What would you like to do?
I guess, just a quick discussion. What is the problem with it?
I took it as the board wanted longer timeframes. That's how I could, that's how I took it, as I thought
And if it's timeframes, then we should come up with a timeframe. The reason there is timeframes is because as soon as there isn't, you have permanent camping. when this was adopted, there was a couple issues in, Antrim Dallas that kind of sparked it. But I don't know how many of you visit or used to visit the Banks Township Park, but there was a Breaking Bad, scene pretty much set up right at the front. And, that kind of prompted the board to look into it a little bit further. So whether it's 45 days or continuous asking for permission or 90, whatever's there needs to move at least once a year. Cause then it's at least getting pumped out, sanitary, we know that it moves. You know, ours is pretty close to the surrounding, ordinances, but that's the reason that there's a number on that, was cause otherwise it comes permanent camp, and you know, once permanent camp comes, and then there's a porch, and then there's a roof, and then there's a, so.
Yeah. So we do have standards. There can't be a permanent structures. That's in our ordinance, so I would wanna keep that. I would also, and the other standard is, in the ordinance, we have two standards, and it's regarding decking, restrooms, walls, permanent structures, and then, waste disposal must be handled in accordance with the sanitary code. So those standards I would wanna keep. I had a question for Curtis. Do people call you and ask you for a 15-day extension? No?
Well, I can't say that.
What about the guy?
I've had a couple say, hey, whether it's, that might have been on their other permit, but not much.
So we have an ordinance that people aren't obeying, or, you know, they're not following, and maybe they don't even know we have an ordinance. But I think, removing Curtis as a, you know, requesting for written request for the 15 days, that could be something that we could amend. I'd like to keep the standards, and then I would like to extend the use. I'd like to extend that we have mushroom hunters in the spring and deer hunters in the fall, and I think it's just too short of a time, so,
And I think that was general, you know, I have a buddy that owns property at the UP, he takes his camper up there as soon as he can get out there for hunting, and it sits there until the snow starts to fly. So it's out there for months at a time, where ours doesn't allow that, and, there was some conversation too, and this, I don't know if this was prior to Curtis or not, but, go across from Peoples Road, I know there was some issue with them having multiple campers out there for it was a holiday weekend of some sort, and, there was an issue with that, but that's what I took on, is the length of time and being able to extend that for, like you said, mushroomers, hunters.
yeah.
But if no one's abiding by the time now, what's it matter if it's 45 or 90 days if he's not enforcing it? Or no one's,
People
no
aren't
one's,
calling.
no one's,
I don't know when people come up here.
no,
Right.
no one's, you know, complaining, again, going back to our complaint-based zoning that we've been under for a long time.
And I said this when it was all being debated for however long we did this,
Yeah.
was that, you know, how enforceable is it? You know, if somebody, I don't know when they're there until someone tells me that they're there, or they call, or a neighbor calls, you know, and then I can make a note of it, but,
Like Patty said, they may not even know they're in violation.
yeah.
Yeah.
Most
I think-
likely, they don't even know they're in violation. Have there been people complaining?
About the short, about having,
How about length?
all I've heard is some complaints at meetings like this that we shouldn't have it. Like I said, this thing was beat like a dead horse for what, a year and a half?
Yeah.
Meeting after meeting after meeting, and this one, it's too restrictive, it's not restrictive enough. This is what this township doesn't allow anything, you know, and it boils down to what you got. And frankly, I don't care if you get rid of the whole thing, it's up to you guys.
Well, I think
It's
Dave's
not
right,
there, I
we
don't
don't want a patio and a permanent stairs and a.
Well, and
ramp
what I'm
and a-
saying is if it doesn't move, that's what it turns into. You know, we're not gonna ask, we'll just kind of slowly, I mean,
Well,
we all know how to skirt around things.
right,
And that's what happens once there's, once it doesn't move or doesn't have to move. It's permanent.
I know like Bel Air, I don't know if it still is, but in my county days, Bel Air's ordinance was 90 days, you had to move every 90 days. So the trooper that had a camper would move it from one side of his garage to the other side of his garage every 90 days.
But that's not,
but it had to be
you
moved.
can have a camper at your house.
Right, but that's not, I'm
You
just
know,
saying that is.
We're talking different
Different
land.
Right.
There's,
Vacant land.
And I think that part, I think it's part of the sums for that guy on Lake Shore that was trying to build and wanted to put his camper there and stay there and come up and work on his house. and
but
stay
again,
in
I
his
think
camper.
that's, again, up to the zoning administrator to go, okay, things are taking a little bit longer. I can see you're still building, you know.
That's allowed. I mean, that's in
You
this,
know.
that's in the ordinance. You can do that. I mean, it's called something like substandard housing while during construction or something like that. I forget the number, but you have to meet the certain, you know, the requirements that are listed there.
Do you have any 2 cents, Richard, on the board's thought?
Not real, anything clear direction. I think, we're hearing public comments, everything from get rid of it completely to, the opposite extreme where, we'd like it to be more restrictive.
Yeah.
I'll just say that we've had cases where we've, found people living in the campers, okay, school buses picking up kids, that type of thing, substandard housing. In those cases, you wanna have some type of time frame in your ordinance that you can go and say, okay, you have established a dwelling unit, it's not a camper anymore, and we're going to, enforce to get where we got kids living in a camper in the middle of winter. Unless it's something you're okay with, but if it's substandard, there's no toilet, that type of thing. So in some, we've had all range of RV ordinance issues, some like, we don't regulate it at all. If you go over 4 campers, then it's a state campground, they have to get DNR permit, that type of thing. To very rigid, every 45 days, we have to drive by at the end of 45 days to see if you moved it. It's totally whatever you prefer. My only concern is if we have no time frame in there and we wanna go get a situation where it's a very bad living situation and we wanna do something about it, we can get it through zoning. And the reason zoning's easier, violation of the zoning ordinance is a nuisance per se, we can ask the court to order it be abated and that they have to comply within a certain number of days. So sometimes it's a little faster and easier than going with the county building department to declare it inhabitable or should not be occupied. So sometimes if you have a zoning regulation, it might be easier to accomplish that. Now, maybe you don't care if people live in all year round in their campers, maybe that's okay with you. I don't presume to make any determination what you think is right. But we have had situations, in other places we represent where we had to go get people out of a camper, because it was an unsafe situation in the middle of winter. So, if you do decide to leave it in, I would like you to leave some time period in there. I would recommend some time period. I don't care what it is. But then you understand, if he only goes out and, because people complain, we had this issue in one of our townships. The neighbor hated that the people next door came up and camped on the weekends. So she called every weekend and complained about these people and it became very abusive. But she was demanding, it says they have to move it every 14 days. They didn't move it, so then it was a chase thing that someone like him would have to be involved in and it becomes very burdensome. So I don't know what the perfect answer is. So if you eliminate it totally, that's okay. If you leave it in, let's have some period of time that they have to, move it or whatever. There's some time limit somewhere.
Okay.
Is this something we need to ask the board for what exactly? Because that's all I took it as they wanted to extend a little bit more, not to get rid of it. Is my interpretation of listening to the meeting was not to get rid of it per se, but to extend it, make it a little more user friendly. But again, I don't know what their thoughts on that exactly was.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't provide clarity either. I'm not sure that there was a clear direction.
I think
I think they said we
it
wanted
just
it-
got picked as one of the things that we should address because someone
Right.
might have tossed it up there. It's
Yeah,
just-
they
again,
want
it's not,
us,
it's not a problem. People aren't calling Curtis and saying, oh, this camper hasn't moved in a year.
And there are some out there that I know of out there. I haven't been able to resolve them yet, but.
I just,
One other thing remember about the RV thing. In the discussion and the building of it, there were accommodations made for the size of the lot. So if it was less than an acre, you had certain restrictions. If you had 1 to 3, you got a little more leeway. If you had more than that, then you could have up to 4 for a certain time. You still can't have them all summer, 4 of them all summer long, but you could have more units there. So there was some accommodation when that whole thing was being done to try to meet the needs of people that are coming up with a family for the 4th of July, and it's a 10-day deal, you know.
Yeah.
And we really haven't had any problem.
Okay. I know in the memo Ruben had put, our Lake Michigan shoreline parcels, so, you know, these long skinny lots here, but we also have them on Skyline Drive, and we also have them down here on Nuffers Road, so it's, and remember what you do in one district, you have to do in all of the district. So, that may be like creating an overlay situation, so. I actually because of the time, I want to, have you think about this some more. I will come up with some suggestions or, more questions for further, so we can further this discussion. I don't like punting, but, we need more information and we need to think about this more clearly. So I'm gonna table this until our next meeting. I really would like to get to, sand and gravel. Are you okay with that, guys?
Yeah.
as long as we
And
can
I'll try
call
to
it
get-
sand and gravel.
I can try to get some more feedback from the board if we have time. Unless we meet next week.
Okay. All right, this is, for discussion purposes only. We were sent an ordinance from Yankee Township. Catherine, I don't know how you want to do this. I have a
All right.
whole list of questions, or maybe you could start by schooling us a little bit about sand and gravel.
All right, so, I think we all know under the zoning enabling act that section 125.3205 talks about, an ordinance shall not prevent the extraction by mining of valuable natural resources from any property unless very serious consequences will result from the extraction of those resources. It defines natural resources are considered valuable. The person by extracting them can receive revenue and reasonably expect to operate at a profit. And then it goes on to say that any person challenging a zoning decision about mining has the initial burden, and this is what they have to show when they submit an application. There's valuable natural resources on the property. There's a need for those natural resources by the person, the applicant, or in the market that that person serves, and that no very serious consequences would result. And then there's a definition of what very serious consequences are and what it contains. And it is, you know, you never see a case from the Michigan Supreme Court quoted right in the statute, but in this case it is. It says in determining whether very serious consequences would result from mining of natural resources, the standards set forth in Silva versus Ada Township, 416 Michigan 153, 1982, a 1982 case from the Michigan Supreme Court, shall be applied and all of the following factors may be considered if applicable. So this is what very serious consequences is. The relationship of extraction and associated activities with existing land uses. So we're gonna look at that. We're gonna look at the impact on existing land uses in the vicinity of the property, the impact on property values in the vicinity of the property and along the proposed haul route. Then it says based on credible evidence, so they can't just be, I think I'm going to lose value of my house because I'm on a haul route. There has to be credible evidence. So that elevates what kind of studies we're gonna see and what we're gonna look for or need to review if we review an application. The impact on pedestrian and traffic safety in the vicinity and along the haul route. The impact on other identifiable health, safety, and welfare interests in the local unit of government, and the overall public interest in extraction of these specific natural resources. And then it says we can, as a municipality, all this doesn't limit our ability to regulate things like hours of operation, blasting hours, noise levels, dust control, and traffic, all right? So this is right in the state law. This is what we have to do when we're looking at, a gravel mining or a natural extraction application. So the section that you recently adopted, I think it was based on, Jerry Fisher's Metamora. You have that.
Yeah.
That is like unbelievably complicated, okay? I've done several gravel pits in my life. I understand that a court upheld it. I just find it very cumbersome and not really, holding to what the purpose of this law is. So that you know, there's been a, I don't know, how do I say it? There's been almost a preference for mining historically in the zoning ordinance and in case law, which says, in essence, you have to consider these things, and if no very serious consequences will result, you have to prove it, all right? At one point in time, the Michigan Supreme Court in Kaiser versus Casson Township somewhere up in the Leelanau area or something like that, they had developed an overlay district and said you can only do mining in this overlay district. We have so many mines in our township, we don't want any more. Our whole township is being taken over by mines. So Casson Township did a very long, almost like a master plan type of study of where the gravel is, how much is needed, and we're gonna do an overlay district. That was challenged up to the Michigan Supreme Court. The Michigan Supreme Court at the time was democratically controlled, and they upheld Casson Township's overlay. And what that did is it removed the preference for mining. It said you cannot give any more preference to mining than any other use, and so this overlay district, we uphold it. Within about 8 or 9 months, the legislature reversed that Michigan Supreme Court ruling and put it right in the law here. Is that they went back to the case from 1982 from Ada Township, Silver versus Ada Township. You cannot deny a project if the person shows they have valuable natural resources on the property. There is a need for those resources by that person or in the market that that person serves, and that no very serious consequences will result. So I took this ordinance, I didn't even develop it. It's just one of my township clients. They are on Gun Lake, between Grand Rapids and Ann Arbor, or Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo, where I live. It's a little bit much for me, but it's a lot less than what you have now. Okay, so when I do a gravel mining project, the applicant is going to present us tons of information because it's their burden to come forward and show, number one, I have valuable natural resources on the property. So they're gonna show me boring logs. They're gonna show me something that shows they have certain types of sand, certain types of gravel, whatever they have on the property, they have to come forward and show they have valuable natural resources on the property. And remember, this statute defines what's valuable. What's valuable is that the person, by extracting the natural resources, can receive revenue and reasonably expect to operate at a profit, okay? That's all they have to prove. The next thing they have to prove is there a need for those natural resources by this person or in the market? Generally, if they are a gravel company, they will bring in a list of their clients, or they'll show, I have all these clients, we need this much gravel, I have a contract with MDOT, we have to have this much gravel, and then they'll talk about where their other pits are, and is this pit, I have over here being almost mined out, I've got like 2 more years on this pit over here, I've got to get another pit or I won't be able to meet my need, okay? So obviously they're gonna put forth all their proofs. They usually come in with huge stacks of tests and studies and everything like that. And then they'll go through the very serious consequences analysis, which is where we get to some of the things that I saw in this ordinance. So this ordinance, Berry County, I don't know if this county is the same, Berry County is full of gravel, okay? So when you have a county that's full of gravel, you get a lot of applications. I represent, 8 or 9 townships in this county, and we have a lot of gravel pit applications all the time. And some of them get approved, some of them get denied. When we have denied them, we've gone into litigation. So I always try to make sure we do everything the right way. when we do it. A gravel pit application is very long, very involved, because you as the planning commission, if it's a special land use, which probably would be, have to make all these types of requisite findings. You have to have a public hearing, of course, if it's a special land use, but then you're gonna have to go through and make all these types of findings, and you as lay people will not necessarily know what the impact of, so that's why we will generally ask for, and they spell it right out in this ordinance, we're gonna ask for a hydrogeological study. We need to know if your gravel mining is going to affect people's water wells, okay? How far down are you gonna gravel mine? How far down is the water table? Where's the aquifer? Is it a perched aquifer? We're gonna need to know everything. I just saw something on the news the other day that somewhere around here, the water wells are all drying up. And it's because gravel mining, well, people think it is, because the gravel mining started a few years ago. Oh, it was down by Monroe County, Michigan, which is southeast Michigan. But all their wells are drying up. And so, you know, they wanna try and go back and prove that the mining companies caused this, but they didn't have the studies up front to show it. So, you know, we would ask for a hydrogeological study so we can know the impacts on surrounding property owners. We would ask for, you know, topographic geological analysis. How much are you going to cut and fill? How much are you gonna remove? How deep are you gonna go? Are you gonna change the grades? How long is this project gonna go? How many acres are you gonna have open at one time? So you can see in this ordinance, they say 15 acres open at one time. Some say no limit on how many acres are open at one time. Some require that you have 15 acres open at one time and you clear that up, you reclaim that before you open the next 15 acres. So there's different approaches. The noise and vibration study, there's a lot to talk about with the noise. Is it going to be, what kind of activities are actually going to be going on? Are you just mining or are you also crushing? Are you bringing in a portable batch plant where you're going to crush? Are you going to wash gravel? Are you going to crush it and separate it? Are you going to have that rack that goes, you know, and it's bouncing down so you want to know what they're going to do. What's the noise going to be at the property line? Is it going to be continuous noise all day long? How many days a week are you going to operate? Those types of things. Vibrations. Is that going to, you know, how far out you're crushing and you're digging? How far out is that going to affect people's foundations? Is that what extent of vibration? How long is that going to go on? So traffic impact study, that's a big one. I mean, I just had a case down in this county where they were going to have 250 gravel trains a day, which is in and out, which is 500 a day. So I need to know what kind of road you're going on. I need to know what other kind of traffic, what is the traffic counts on that road from the road commission. I need to know, are there school bus stops on this road? Because I am having 200 gravel trains a day in and out, which is 400 trips a day, okay? And in this particular case, they kept saying to it, the road it was on was between two townships. And they said, well, we're only having 200 trips a day in your township. Well, okay, I know you're pulling 200 trips a day on my side, but you are gonna pull back out again. So 400 trips. We like to work with the road commission. We like to talk to the road commission to make sure if they're gonna approve, you know, a commercial driveway or in and out, or do we need a deceleration lane? You know, we don't want you coming over a hill with a gravel truck and then having to stop. I mean, there's a lot of thinking about that kind of traffic. So you want a traffic impact study. Air quality analysis, dust control. There is some evidence that, you know, working in the actual mine can cause silicosis, okay, which is cancer, okay? So, you know, you'll hear that the applicants, the gravel companies will say that's not gonna affect anyone that lives in the area. It's just, you know, might affect our workers, but it's not gonna affect you. Then you'll get people will bring in all kinds of studies showing you that silicosis, you know, the dust that spreads from a gravel operation can cause different health issues. So you're gonna wanna see that. You're gonna wanna see an endangered species impact analysis, because we're talking about what are the, you know, impacts of very serious consequences. The economics analysis, that's to get with the property values, all right? So Are you gonna affect people's property values? I need a study from somebody. Sometimes people do it with a realtor, sometimes people do it with an economist. But you need to show me, is it going to affect the property values along in the area and along the haul route? And if so, how much? So those are all the types of reports that in this ordinance they ask for. If you don't put it in your ordinance, you're gonna probably ask for them anyways, because you have to know what very serious consequences result. And you're gonna have to know all these types of things before you determine whether very serious consequences would result. So, the other thing we probably need to talk about, and I don't even know if it's in here, I think the setbacks in here were 1,000 feet from an occupied dwelling, 1,000 feet from any type of residential zoning districts. That's pretty high. I don't know if that, I can see that being challenged, especially if somebody has gravel on a parcel and that gravel is valuable and they can make money on, harvesting that gravel. This one has 1,000 feet. I'm just not sure about that. I do think, no digging within 200 feet of a property line. I don't think that's excessive, because when you're digging and you're digging down, setback from the property, you want to maintain something. So there's some protection, so there's no subsidence of anyone's property next door. You're not digging so close that they might collapse. This here says no more than one combined entrance and exit on the site. We would probably think about that and defer to the road commission. Sometimes they want them coming in one way and coming out another. I would, we would look at the road commission for that. They call it a site rehabilitation plan, but obviously, a reclamation plan, like when you're done, how are you gonna reclaim it? We had one in this county that we thought they had enough, they had the sufficient bond to go ahead and reclaim it at the end if the developer didn't do it. The developer didn't do it, and it got down to here on page 12. It says 8, site rehabilitation plan. How deep are we replacing that topsoil on this site? And then it says it right here, they're going to 6 inches, because we had that problem. We had the developer just throw some sand, dirt across the whole, 50-acre site. None of the grades were restabilized. None of that was right. And then we had a fight with them after 20 years, and the amount of money that the municipality was holding was not enough to go in and really reclaim that site fully. So you want to look at when we're done. It says here, slopes will have no more than a 1-on-3 grade, final surface water drainage, all those types of things, planting, landscaping. So this is just a pretty comprehensive set of ordinances. This started in this township because people were coming in and saying, and this is a common approach in the gravel industry, is I'm gonna dig a pond. I just want to dig a pond on my property. I'm going to dig a pond. The one I had where my township never called me till they were, 6 years into it, is a man got permission to dig a pond, 9-acre pond on his 40-acre parcel for his kids and grandkids. And he was 5 years into mining that with many, many trucks a day lined up on the road before the township ever called me and said, I don't think he's digging a pond. Okay? He had stockpiles 60 feet high on his property. So they had given him a special use permit for a pond. I now am in the position of trying to prove that he isn't digging a pond. Okay? That he's selling gravel right out the front door, all of it. But here, at least in this township, Yankee Springs, they had that situation where somebody said they was digging a pond, and it went on for 3-4 years with the gravel trucks lined up every day, and he kept saying, well, I want my pond to be this big, and we had a very hard time shutting it down. So then after that happened, they went back and revised all this so they could get it. I think there's something in here about ponds too. So, we can talk about what I would hope you would want to do is figure out how restrictive you want to be, knowing the legal framework we have to be in. We do have to allow them if the person can prove these things that are under the Zoning Enabling Act. Generally, we would do it as a special land use. Generally, we're going to take some type of reclamation cash bond or hold some type of financial security at the end, so if it goes sideways, we can go out there and clean it up. We're gonna have to make all these types of findings, it could take a lot of time to go through. But I like this ordinance because it tells the applicants what types of reports you have to submit with your application. I don't have to fight with you. I don't, some of them will come in and say, we're not gonna cause any harm to the water table because we're never gonna go dig down to the bottom of the table. We're gonna stay 2 to 3 feet above the bottom of the table. Well, how do I know that you're gonna do that? And what happens the day that you mess that up and you go below, okay? And now you've affected the water tables of a lot of people around. I mean, when we do this, I will bring with me, and I don't know if Ruben's firm has this, but some of the other firms we work with, we get a hydrogeologist. And we have them review the applicant's report, and we have them make their, township takes a large escrow fund for reviewing these projects. We call in not only myself or Ruben, but also we bring in a hydrogeologist, we bring in an engineer to help you review the application, to give you the neutral response to what the application is. So you don't have to figure that out yourselves. So that's how we kind of do it. I do think that the ordinance you have now is unnecessarily complicated, but that's just my opinion. If you decide you want to stay with it, obviously, we can live with it. I just really don't like it or recommend it, but that's certainly your decision. So if you want to talk to me about things you had questions on, this is just a starting point. If you don't like this, you don't have to look at it ever again. But it was just a point to start conversation.
Thank you for that overview, Catherine. Just going forward, our next regular board meeting is the board will be meeting with us, so that we're not punting this back and forth all the time, so they know what we know, and we can all be on the same page. Big picture questions. I have a question followed by, or excuse me, a position statement followed by a question. What I would hope would happen, that there wouldn't be a lot of overlap between what Eagle and Mine Safety Health Administration, there are governing agencies out there, and I would hope that there wouldn't be a lot of overlap. Now, am I naive in saying that? And I ask because in the hospital setting, we have the hospital police joint commission on health. They come in. We know they're coming in. We're coached. We're staffed. They come in. They say their thing, and then we go back to business as usual after they leave. And it's nothing regarding safety. It's just like logging in, logging out of your computer. You can't do that. All those things. How good is the oversight by Eagle and the Mine and Safety Health Administration?
I've never seen the Mine and Safety Health Administration on anything. Certainly not in your zoning review, okay? Maybe once it's operating, that might be there. Eagle will be involved if it is near wetlands, okay? I just had a project in southern Michigan where our hydrogeologist, who I've been on several projects with, I trust emphatically, said they will never get this project approved because they're gonna withdraw too much water a day, okay? It's above, there's a whole formula for the state of Michigan, if you apply for water withdrawal, et cetera. They'll never get it. They got it approved. It was over 2 million gallons of water a day for gravel pit because they were gonna recycle it, okay? They did that kind of recycling, and then used to wash the gravel. It will be funneled back through, and it's gonna go back into the ground. So in terms of Eagle and how helpful they are, they will respond to questions you have, or if you like here it says you have to get any Eagle permit, you have to bring as part of the application, show me that you've applied for Eagle permits, or show me that you've got your well permitted and that type of thing. They're not going to do much more than that, okay? So what you have to do is determine will very serious consequences result, get past step 1 and 2. And the way you're gonna do that is the applicant is gonna give you a lot of studies and reports and analysis saying, we're gonna do these things, this is how much we're gonna do, and it's not gonna cause a very serious consequence. And you're going to have to get some third-party assistance to help you interpret what they give you. And then determine from what you learn, you know, will this cause very serious consequences? Are there conditions we can put on it so that it will not, so that maybe we limit it to 15 acres of mining at a time, you know, maybe, you know, et cetera. So that's the challenge. There will not be much help from Eagle or anyone else
Okay, that's
in the
really,
zoning context.
okay.
Okay?
That's really helpful. So there's no operational body, no one overseeing operational bodies per se, operations. We have to rely on our ordinance
For us, in terms of deciding whether to permit it or not, yes. Now, we will get input, you know, Eagle has, you know, as I just mentioned, Eagle will talk about whether they can do it in this area. They'll talk about, there is, one of the departments does involve, the dusts. They'll have to get a dust, a permit for air pollution. So I forget who that is, but that would be there too. So there will be things that they'll get their requisite permits or approvals, but nobody's coming down and watching this.
Okay.
In terms of the zoning approvals, okay?
Now, this particular ordinance relies very heavily on zoning administrator to monitor compliance. Is
Mhm.
that typical?
It is typical. In this particular township, they do have a full-time zoning administrator. So if in fact, you know, there's gonna have to be somebody to monitor, a special use approval generally, remember, if there are violation conditions, we can, you know, possibly ask them about, you know, coming in. So most of these projects, we make them do an annual report. They come back in front of the planning commission once a year. They say, you know, we told you we were gonna mine 15 acres. This is how much we mined this year. You know, this is the area on the map that we're working on. We didn't get it all done this year because there wasn't as much demand, but we, you know, plan that next year we'll continue mining this and then we're gonna move to this next section over here. And so we generally make them come back once a year or once every other year to report to the planning commission if it's a special use approval.
Okay.
There will be, if there's complaints, so a lot of times we make them have a complaint process. I don't know if that's in here, but there has to be a complaint process on who, if the township, somebody calls the township to complain, who does the township go to? I need a phone number, I need, you know, 24/7 phone number for somebody. And then we set a timeline for how long they have to respond to and correct or address the complaint. So generally we'll have a complaint process somewhere in here as well.
Okay. Other kind of bigger picture questions I had is, so they're approved for 2 years. This one is.
Okay.
They get approved for 2 years, but there is someone that has to come in annually. It's a civil engineer or,
Somebody has to come in and report what they're doing each
they
year.
have to, do like an assessment and then they have to come report to us. Do you have to is it required to have a public hearing every 2 years?
No. Just once it's approved, it's just an annual report. Well, I don't really, 2 years I think is kind of short, but, you could go with 2 years. The only way we have to have another public hearing is they change something, okay? They're going into different area that they didn't plan on doing, or, something's changing. If something's changing, then we probably would have another public hearing, but otherwise, if it's just extending the special use permit on the same terms for another 2 years, I would not necessarily have another public hearing.
Okay. Guys, any questions you have for Kathleen?
It's just a starting point.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the regular monitoring, so the zoning administrator would be in charge of regularly monitoring, reporting groundwater levels and surrounding wells.
Well, you may want to, so we may want to, contract with a third-party engineer or something to do that, you know?
Yeah,
Which in case is a special use
I'm
approval.
not gonna drop my plumb bob now.
He said, what are you signing me up for? So we may want to have, you know, them have the township contract with a third-party engineer or something to do that on a every 6 month or, twice a year basis or once a year, whatever. So in order to do that, we're gonna need some money, right? So, maybe we have to have an escrow fee that even after the application is done, we need an escrow fee for continued, compliance reviews, But I would probably have a third-party engineer do that, not.
Okay. It was your associate, Michael Bila, who, we got a lot of pushback on the escrow that we required of a previous applicant. And I don't think Michael Bila said, the reports that are required should never be on the taxpayer's dime. That's on the developer. And, at that time, of course, I didn't know that, but, it makes sense to me now that, so the escrow was fairly large, because we got a fair amount of pushback on that.
Yeah, so, when you have large projects, like maybe gravel mine or renewable energy or something, you're gonna take a larger escrow fee, because you are gonna be asking for, like, the applicant is going to, if you use this type of ordinance, gonna submit all these reports to you, then I have to go out and hire an engineer to review those reports, that's gonna cost money. So as, I think what Michael was saying is, through the escrow, we make the developer pay for our expert to
Yeah.
help us review it, right? So you may get pushback on that from a developer, but we just know with gravel pit type of applications, it's going to be fairly substantive, a lot of work, a lot of stuff to review and a lot of work. You'll for sure want him, you may want me, and you may want an engineer. Okay, and the meetings could go on for 6 months, a year, okay? So just understand there's going to be a lot of time and energy expended in reviewing one of these applications. If, depending on how thorough your ordinance is. And I would rather ask for the reports up front than to have to try and go after them by saying, you need to prove to me whether very serious consequences will result, so I need an economic study. I need the endangered species study. I need this. Now, if any real gravel company that does this a lot, this is their business, they are not gonna be surprised at any of this, okay? They probably would expect it. Whether they wanna put down $20,000 in escrow, I don't know. But we need to look at when we actually get ready to, if you're gonna do anything with this, or if you're gonna leave what you have, we need to look at our escrow and make sure we have the ability to go higher for more complicated projects like renewable energy, gravel pits, things like that, where we know. And then, of course, if we don't use all that escrow, we refund it.
Right.
And is there a way to do that interacts directly with the size of whatever's proposed as well?
Well, we could look at, more complex projects. We had a big, multifamily development or a resort or something like that. I think we have to think about, because we want to make sure what we're asking for is going to match what we anticipate the work will be, right? We don't want to just hit certain people or certain industries, like, you have to pay me more. But, we could look at the types of projects and maybe in consultation with you guys, what projects are more complicated do we expect is gonna need more professional assistance, okay? And then ask for more escrow on those. So this is just a starting point. If you say, I hate it, I don't ever wanna look at it again, that's okay. If you say, I like some things, I don't like most of it, we just gotta identify what we don't like, and then, we can start to write up something, but I think it's gonna take us a while.
I think this is really helpful. When I looked at the first application, I had, of course, no knowledge of any of this, so it's really helpful for us to all have this same starting point, like, here's the standard, here's the operational standard that you can expect. So I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, because as I said, we're going to have a board PC meeting at the same time, and then we can get more specific at that meeting at the time, unless you have anything else regarding gravel pits for Kathy.
I think we're in the right direction with this. I think it could be catered a little bit more to our community. It has all the protections that our
You can
our
simplify it.
current ordinance has in it. The biggest complaint was the legal ease, There's a lot of, like you said, listed statutes through the whole thing, that mean nothing to us. But again, it was pushed by our attorneys at the time to,
I understand.
we need you're the one that's gonna go to bat for us, so we
Right.
need you to,
Well, and I've been in litigation for, gravel mines, and, you know, the point to understand is every county judge is different. So if you approved a special land use permit and, a bunch of neighbors, appealed it, to circuit court, you know, we may know what the law is, but we don't know what your county judge is gonna do, okay? So we all have to understand that we'll do the very best we can through the process and public hearings, and everything will be done correctly. Sometimes judges just go, I'm not gonna talk about my personal experience, but I've had the judge in Berry County throw something out, even though we did everything right. She threw out the decision the, planning commission made because she said, well, you didn't follow it directly out of the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, okay? So you'll see a lot of, ordinances that will have additional special use standards over and above what's in the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act. And in that case, she threw it out. I thought she was wrong, you know, but the township didn't want to take it any further. So we ended up settling a consent agreement about the terms of that gravel pit, what it was gonna be. But she essentially, by telling us that our decision wasn't right, even though it was right, you know, she undercut our, ability to, control that project. So we always have to remember that if we end up in court, it's a little bit of a wild card.
Wonderful, okay. At this point, I'd like to transition a little bit. The board has made allowance to, do a little bit of board training at this time. So, Planning Commission 101. The benefit of this is there's always this disconnect between what the Planning Commission knows and what the public knows. This helps close that gap. So this is super beneficial.
Okay, well, I guess I'll stand up a little bit. So my background is I was a planner before I went to law school. I went to law school at Wayne State University at night while I worked as a planner. I'm an AICP certified planner, which is a national certification that we all have to take a test to do, and it's very unpleasant. But I got it years ago, and now I have to do continuing education to keep it current. So planning commissions, if you have zoning, and of course, a lot of municipalities don't have any zoning at all, okay, so, but if you have zoning, you have to have a planning commission, you have to have a zoning board of appeals, and the planning commission is, as authorized by the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, so that's a separate statute from the zoning act. But it talks about the planning commission shall be 5, 7, or 9 members, okay, they shall be, people who live in the township, and they're supposed to represent different interests in the community, like business or education or agriculture, and then as much as possible be geographically spread throughout the township. That is always not always possible. Sometimes it's impossible. So you get 5, 7, or 9. Apparently, you guys have 5. One person has to be from the township board, and that's really nice because that's in townships. It's not the same in cities. It's not the same in the county. In a township, and if we take a step back, there used to be 3 separate laws. There was a Township Zoning Act, there was a City and Village Zoning Act, and there was a County Zoning Act. In 2006, all those were put into one. But there's still some differences between each of those types of governments. So for a township, 1 member of the board is on the planning commission. It must be on the planning commission. That's really important because what he hears here, he is supposed to go back and tell the board, this is what the planning commission discussed. This is what they were thinking of. You know, whether he agrees with what happened at the planning commission or not, he's supposed to take that knowledge back. And same thing, just like he did tonight, this is what we did at the board. So that's a really nice thing. I have county planning commissions and I have city planning commissions that never hear or ever interact with their legislative body. So you get situations where they develop laws or you get a recommendation from the planning commission and the legislative body is like, we don't want to do this. And then you've just wasted time, right? So here we have somebody who's a joint member. You will be assigned things in the zoning ordinance, site plans, special land uses. You have to make recommendations on legislative decisions, rezonings or zoning ordinance text amendments. You have to hold the public hearings, and probably one of your biggest jobs is to do the master plan, which we have to do, we have to look at every 5 years. So as of tonight, we got 4 years and 362 days or whatever, till we have to do this again, whatever. So, that's the broad thinking of, what do we wanna do in the future, where do we wanna go, how do we wanna accomplish it? I went to the University of Michigan, undergrad, Michigan State, University of Michigan for my master's degree in urban planning, and after 2 years there of all kinds of, finally somebody said to me, what you need to know, all you need to know is zoning follows the plan. That's how they relate to each other, zoning follows the plan. So we do the master plan, we have all these broad policy guides and ideas, and then zoning is one way of implementing them. So our zoning ordinance, once you just did this new master plan, you're gonna start looking at things in that zoning ordinance, which you may have already started, to implement that zoning ordinance, okay? So many people do not understand what's a master plan, what's a zoning ordinance, how do they go together, what are we supposed to do, what if my, and they'll look at a future land use map and think you rezone their property and get all upset. So you guys are the lay people who are tasked with, first of all, understanding the broader picture, which is the master plan, right? What do we think we want this community to be? And then also the day-to-day grind, what's the zoning ordinance? So you make recommendations to the township board. Sometimes they don't agree with you. Sometimes they do something different and you feel like, boy, I did all that work and they went this way, but they're the elected officials. You have the hard work in terms of public hearings. God willing, we never get a renewable project here, because then you will really be on a hot seat, okay? Because you have to face very, any volatile or big issue that's coming in the township is probably coming through you first, if it doesn't stop here. So special use, if we had a renewable project, a special use, it's gonna be to you guys. You're gonna decide that. Gravel mining, if that should come our way and we start getting projects, then it's gonna come to you. You're gonna decide that. In some places, the board will reserve to itself final decision on special uses. I really don't like that because it makes it more political. You are supposed to be kind of the technicians. You look at the zoning ordinance, you apply the zoning ordinance, you make decisions. So that's how that relates. Now, we have, you are working within all the rest of Michigan law, the Open Meetings Act, Freedom of Information Act, all those types of things. So when you hold your meetings, they have to be noticed, you have to take minutes, all that type of stuff. I could do a whole 3 hours on planning commission training. I don't know exactly what you want from me tonight. But if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. If you want further training, I can do it. I teach all the time for the Michigan Townships Association. Actually, we're teaching in May in Harbor Springs. So if you want, you can just come up to Harbor Springs and hear us talk. But then you have to pay for it. But it's important that you guys, and it sounds like you just did a master plan. You're never gonna get everything 100% right. There's always going to be something, whether you do a master plan or you do a new zoning ordinance, that somebody's gonna be unhappy with. I want you to just let it sit in it for a year or so before you make any wholesale changes. Just start to see how it works. If something becomes immediately apparent, okay, we just really messed this up. Well, then we can do a zoning ordinance text amendment, we can change it. But it seems like you spent a lot of time on this master plan, so you have the ideas what you want. And we're gonna watch that legislation on the housing, we're gonna watch the legislation, the Land Division Act legislation already did pass. We're gonna watch the legislation on the renewables, if it should change. And then, be prepared if you think we need to get into something and change it fast. But other than that, I can answer any questions you have. I can talk about the laws and the legal framework. I don't want to do that, it's late, but if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. And you can do as much training, I can come for 2 hours and do it, whatever you want.
So you or someone from your firm is gonna come another time, just so you know the board has
Okay,
done that. So,
all right.
do you guys have questions for Catherine regarding planning commission stuff? I know you have a specific question regarding her W-9.
No worries.
But,
Okay. But, you know, if you need anything more, I'm happy
Doesn't
to
bother me.
talk about that.
Okay, so we do get paid a little money, I'll help out, I'll ask. We do
Yeah,
get paid,
I-
we get paid a stipend.
Mhm.
And then now we have to fill out a W-9.
Probably because as an appointed official, you're either gonna be an employee or you're gonna be a W-9. You know, is that 1099 like?
Yeah,
Yeah. So, the township has to either have you as a W-2 employee or you're, as a planning commissioner, you're considered an appointed official. Okay, you're not an employee, you're an appointed official. So they probably have to do a 1099 for you.
even though it's below the threshold of what the IRS
Well,
considers.
if it's below the threshold, then no, but I don't remember what the threshold is.
It's 2,000 in 2026 now.
Okay. Well, I would have to talk to whoever's doing it for you, but, and that's, I can find out. I don't know right off the top of my head.
Okay.
Anybody else? Person?
I'm prepared for questions.
Pardon me?
I wasn't prepared for questions for
Okay.
Catherine.
Me either.
Yeah, okay. All right, Catherine, do you care if we ask take questions from them?
No, that's fine.
Okay, anybody in the audience have questions for Catherine while she's here? This is a valuable opportunity.
Free legal advice.
They don't, I will tell you, they don't love being in the firing squad, so
No, but-
it's gracious of you to consent to that.
no, no problem. So
Okay.
again, like we go.
I guess I do have a question about the board. Do you guys meet outside of these meetings?
No.
That has to do with the, that act, the Meetings Act?
The Open Meetings Act?
Yeah, so you're not allowed to meet?
Correct.
Okay, that's my question.
Now, they are allowed to, like, if they attended a conference together or something that's considered a social event or something, but they cannot make any deliberations or discuss any business outside of a public meeting.
Okay.
Like that last meeting that there was multiple of us in attendance, we had to post our meeting because potentially we could talk about township business.
No, I understand now.
Okay. All
Is
right.
there any legal right for having other board members come here? Like for the regular board to talk
Well-
as lay people? Is there rules for that or no?
Yeah, there pretty much is. So, they are discouraged from attending because there's case law, reported case law from the courts that says it could be considered, undue pressure on them because they are appointed by the township board. Okay, so the township board appoints them to the planning commission. And it could be perceived as if a township board member came here and either spoke or didn't speak, that it could be perceived as pressuring them to decide one way or another. So I have always advised that they not attend the planning commission meetings. We have one board member here, and he's supposed to go back and, in some cases, board members will attend despite my advice. And if they do, then I just tell them to sit in the back of the room, don't talk to each other, don't talk to anybody. And I would prefer they not make public comment. And the reason is this, let's say we're in a very volatile situation or we end up in litigation, okay? The very first thing the person challenging the township can say is, your process was bad, your procedural due process was violated because your supervisor came to the meeting and he talked, and there was undue pressure on these people. It can blow up the whole thing we have just done because of that case law that says that can be perceived as undue influence. So whatever, if we have a very difficult case, a renewable energy project, a gravel pit, or something where we know right from the start it may go to litigation, part of my obligation is to protect the process as much as possible. So if we are going into court at the end of the day, somebody can't overturn our decision because our process was bad, if that makes sense. So I always recommend no. Sometimes board members feel compelled to come. If they do, I just ask them to sit in the back of the room and not talk. Please. Sometimes they talk anyways. And it just makes it harder for us if we have to go into litigation. And they will believe me. An opposing counsel, that's the first thing they'll bring up, the very first thing. on that day, your township supervisor came to the meeting, he spoke at the public comment, even if he says, I'm speaking as John Smith, citizen of blank township, instead of John Smith supervisor. It'll hurt us, but it is what it is. So I discourage it, and that's all.
I got one more if you don't mind.
Mhm.
In the master plan, what is, I mean, you oversee or see other different townships. What would be considered a good turnout for creating a master plan as far as comment from people for the survey? What is considered
Well,
average?
I can't say what's considered average, because a lot of times I'm not necessarily involved in it. A planner will do that, okay? But, it is a challenge to get people to participate. It's a challenge whether you have a public hearing, it's a challenge if you send out a survey, it's a challenge if you let people do a survey online. It's a challenge. If you are going through something big, like, Lower Michigan would just hit with renewables, okay? Then you're gonna get a lot of people out because they become interested in something and then a lot of them stay interested or they stay involved. I really can't say, but I know, it seems like here they did everything they were supposed to do in terms of noticing, they did a survey, they had a public hearing. So I can't say what the great number is. Of course, more the better, okay? Because you want the plan to be reflective of your community. But they also have the obligation that every 5 years they've got to do it. So I'm sure they did their best they could to get people in, but I really don't know anything more than that.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay?
I think Ruben said 10%. Is that right, Ruben?
Yeah, sometime, I think.
10% of your Banks Township population,
What's our township numbers?
1,500.
So because we've talked about this.
Is that right, Ruben?
My,
Between 5-10%.
Okay.
my sister's in Grand Blanc Township with a population of 16,000,
Mhm.
and they had less participants in their master plan than we did.
Typical, I would say.
So,
Ken, like, talking about board members coming, would that be the same effect as, say, the treasurer clerk sends we have correspondence, like the letters that we get sent, we don't read them anymore, but it's in the record. And it doesn't come from the board, it comes from a particular member that says, I want this.
I generally discourage that for every reason I just said. Sometimes I'll say to people, can you have your spouse do it? Can you just to make my life easier, instead of you coming to the meeting and saying, I'm opposed to this, could you just have your husband or your wife come do it? And they'll tell me no, why they won't, because they have a citizen, they have a right to speak, okay? So, and then I just say, okay, well, if we go downtown and we lose it because of you, I'm just gonna remind you it was because of you, okay? So, it just, I prefer not, but of course I can't tell people what they can and can't do. I can only recommend.
Then I know, I've done it, I think Dave's done it before, the public comment will say, as the public, this is my 2 cents worth on this topic, is that,
You guys?
In
yeah,
a board
You're
meeting?
going to board meetings.
we're sitting here
Oh,
at the end, I'm just saying, cause usually it's not a back and forth, but
so at the end, you wanna make a comment and you wanna say what you thought about something? or-
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh.
It's, if the decision, when you are making decisions, you should be talking at the table about, I think this, I think that, I really like, I just heard you today, I just heard you say, I'm not really okay with this about the lakes, and I don't think the people on the lake should be excluded out, and so I heard all the deliberation tonight, I think that's great. And at the end of the day, if you have planning commission comments, yes, you can say whatever you want. Now, if there's something pending in front of you, there's an application in front of you or something that has to be decided. You're supposed to be a neutral decision-making body. So once you've made the decision, fine, say what you want, okay? But until you make that decision, I don't want you discussing it outside of a meeting. I don't want you discussing it with each other. Keep all that until you're in this room, okay?
Last question. Oh,
What
go ahead.
about audience members asking questions of the commission? That seems to be discouraged,
It is discouraged because public comment is supposed to be for you guys to make public comment. They hear it, but they're not gonna do a back and forth. They have their meeting they gotta get through, they hear it. It doesn't mean they ignore it, doesn't mean anything like that, but it's the same thing at the township board. It's not a back and forth. It's not time for, discussion over the table with a cup of coffee. It's time for you to make your public comment. They're gonna listen to it. They may ask you, sometimes they may ask a question for clarification or something, but they are discouraged by their attorneys from going back and forth.
Do you have a question?
It had something to do with the audience engaging with the board with the conversation, so you answered the question.
Thank you. All right, with that, I'm gonna close that portion.
All right.
And, open it back up to public comment. Who's on?
Public comment, go.
Done.
Okay, my first comment is that this is a small room and it's very quiet in here, but I was listening online before I came, and it's almost impossible to hear you down there at that end of the table. I don't know if you can hear her or not, but that's an issue, and I think that there's not only the one, aren't there two sites that are live streaming this? Okay, so I tried them both, they're both pretty poor. Just a note for
For
improvement.
audio, you mean?
Yeah, the audio could use some improvement. And if someone were like monitoring it while it was going on, they would know that. So I don't know if that's part of the plan. Moving on.
Volunteers, we need volunteers.
Okay, well, I have helium in my head, so.
And Curtis, the township supervisor, is running this camera, and he's in the,
Alex?
or what did I say, Kurt?
Alex.
Alex,
That's Curtis.
is in the other room, so he's not involved, like Catherine said.
Okay.
So he's running that, so we can say something
Okay,
to him too.
so well, that was my thing. And then I've also been fairly close to Facebook and following all the goings on here, and I somehow missed the idea that resolution 3, near and dear to me, is back on the agenda. So I heard a lot of the conversation before I got here, and I just want to understand that the last meeting, you guys made a motion to remove the definition of propane tanks as a structure. Motion carried. And then it was supposed to go to the board for them to do something on. And I haven't been able to figure out what's happened with it since, and now it's back on the agenda tonight. And from what I understood tonight, you guys did the exact same thing. You made a motion to remove a tank as a structure, which was already there. So I'm really not sure where that is. In follow-up to that, I gave you guys the information on National Fire Protection Code 58. I'm not sure if you guys have read it and understood it clearly. It is a fire code, and it is about safety from the neighbor to the neighbor and from property to the tanks. They are well versed in that, and from the previous month's discussion, everybody kind of agreed that there's an organization out there that covers it. We don't need to, as a township zoning administrator, deal with that issue. In the interest of generators, National Fire Protection Code 37 is everything you want to know about generators. They have a 5-foot setback requirement in that code. Obviously, townships can supersede those. So, my advice or neighborly input would be the whole resolution 3 was a vindictive insertion of that law, and it should all be repealed. There's no need for the board to say we're going to do a better job as a board and include the nebulous term of similar structures. Cut yourself some slack, do what everybody wanted you to do, reduce the amount of regulation in our system, and just eliminate resolution 3. It serves no purpose to anyone. None of it does. I think I'm probably out of time.
Okay, thanks, Don.
Thank you.
Nancy, any comment from you? Okay, Julie, okay. Anybody else?
The only thing I got is, Jesse Banks. I know that how we kinda got into a lot of this was that the public wanted the board, the planning commission to try to make some of the stuff less restrictive, and they wanted to see action. They wanted to see a timely action. So the idea of tabling things and all that, I really think that for right now, for all intents and purposes, we really gotta try to prove a point to the public that this board can be successful and can make things less restrictive and can do what the public is asking. I do understand that sometimes that translation, or it gets lost in translation from the board to this planning commission. So you don't really have a clear direction on what you're being asked by the township. I think that's probably possibly fair to say. But the setback thing, I guess I missed part of it in the beginning. All I heard was that he didn't really know what was going on, is gonna send it back to the board, is that right, for the setbacks?
They voted our recommendation down.
Correct, you sent it there, they voted it down, they came back here, then what was the reaction here?
We have to wait for direction from them.
So you're sending it back to them for direction?
They have to give us direction. We did what they asked, and now they need to give us more information.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was clearly defined at the last meeting, but must not have been. Okay.
Julie?
I just wanna say that I think the public has a tendency to underestimate how much time it takes to do all these things. So it may be tabled because the planning commission needs time to research things and to get information. You can't get information at one meeting and make a snap decision, so it's imperative that you guys have time to go back and look at things and get direction from the attorney. These things take time. The public can say we want it done in 6 months, but that's unrealistic. And that's just the way it is. It's unrealistic if you're juggling 2 or 3, and if you're juggling 3 or 4 different issues, there's no way you're gonna get anything done. So that's just my opinion from being on the planning commission and on the board. It takes a lot more time than people realize. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. All right, with that, I would take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
All right, all in favor, say aye. All right, see you next regular meeting, May 12th. Don, let me follow up.
Okay, and I also, I know you guys all get a little stipend, but none of you get enough, because you all have real lives also, so I appreciate it.
I'm gonna step away from the mic.
I came up with an idea. Patty had printed these out, so we'll just sign this one.
It's been a long day.
Just